Thank you all for joining us. Today we're here to discuss the Queensland Innovation Precincts and Places Strategies Strategic Initiatives Fund that was launched a few weeks ago. I just need to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and it may be uploaded to our website or disclosed to other government departments or contractors for the purposes of helping to inform and support Queensland Government grant programs and advance Queensland initiatives, and that your personal information will be handled in accordance with the Information Privacy Act. Before we begin, the department would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we all meet today. For our officers, it is the Yuggera people and the Turrbal people. We recognise their continuing connection to lands, waters and communities. We'd also like to pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that we have here today, and to elders past, present and emerging. So this fund is part of the Queensland Innovation Precincts and Places strategy that was launched last year. There's a $15 million Queensland Innovation Precincts and Places Fund that's in place that is intended to deliver on three pillars of this strategy. Two key actions are this fund and the $150 million SEQ City Deal Innovation Economy Fund. This session will include a presentation on the first stream, which is the Strategic Initiatives Fund, and it will be followed by questions and answers. If you can please use the question and answer function to record any questions that you would like us to attend to. Time permitting, we'll try and get through as many as we can. So it would be great if you could just like any questions that anyone else has asked that also match your interest so that we can address the things that are the most important for the attendees here today. So as I mentioned earlier, this strategic initiative program is intended to support the place and the purpose pillars. Grants of up to $300,000 are available for existing Queensland-based innovation precincts and places. It's intended to support the provision of strategic advice, including an action plan that will be for governance frameworks, investment attraction strategies, operational land and building asset assessment strategies. And applications close at 1 o'clock on the 28th of September 2023. It's important to think about what the objectives of this program are for. It's needing to position Queensland innovation places to reach their full potential for attracting investment and creating high-value jobs. It's intended to position Queensland innovation places and partner organisations to collaborate in the development and growth of innovation places. And it's also intended to strengthen the development, effectiveness and sustainability of Queensland's innovation places. As part of the strategy that was developed last year, there was significant stakeholder engagement and research that was done as part of a discussion paper. And the research that came from that was very clear that what is required to really help lift innovation places and precincts is some strategic advice in these areas that we have mentioned. And that's where this fund came to be. For eligibility criteria, you must be a precinct partner of an existing Queensland-based innovation precinct or place. You need to be a corporate entity, not an individual, and you need to be GST registered with an ABN. One application is permitted per precinct or place. I've received a number of questions on the next few slides, which is why we're going to go through them in a little bit more detail. An innovation precinct or place for the purposes of this program is defined as having the following elements: a brand or an identity as an innovation precinct or place. It needs to have an existing, clearly defined, established physical site. The site needs to co-locate two or more entities who have a shared vision, agreement, and/or common interest, at least one of which is a commercial or research entity. Importantly, an innovation precinct or place needs to have an objective to foster innovation and collaboration across the precinct or place partners. Another question we're getting a lot of is what is considered a precinct partner? So a precinct partner is not a co-tenant in a building or an entity that simply has a commercial relationship with an entity. It's an entity that's aligned with the brand of the innovation precinct or place. It has a shared purpose and vision, or an agreement or common interest with the future development and growth of that precinct or place. A partner has a commitment to the future strategies and action plan of the innovation precinct or place. And importantly, it's accepted by other precinct or place partners as belonging to that innovation precinct or place. The kinds of things that can be funded. This funding is very clear. It needs to be used to engage a third-party expert to obtain strategic advice, including an action plan that will deliver on one of the best practice frameworks, a governance framework, an investment attraction strategy, and/or an operational land and building asset assessment strategy. The strategic advice must also set out tangible and achievable actions that will be implemented within 12 months. The kinds of things that a governance framework includes are effective and place-relevant board and advisory board governance structures, documented management, delivery and development responsibilities for ongoing service delivery, operational partnerships and precinct delivery. They also include responsibilities for precinct activation and development. And they also can include tangible and achievable actions to implement the recommended governance framework. They don't need to have all of these factors in place, but they would usually have at least some or more than one of those. An investment attraction strategy is considered to include a comparative strength analysis, benchmarking against comparators to identify areas of focus to enhance the innovation place's competitive position. It will include an opportunity identification and strategy development piece. They may include a benefits assessment of future industry potential. They also may include demand analysis that provides point-in-time analysis of emerging and future industries. And they may also include tangible and achievable actions to implement the strategy. An operational assessment strategy includes land tenure availability issues, assessments that utilise the land and building or assets available for expansion and future development, master planning, including expansion and long-term development opportunities, and tangible and achievable actions to implement the strategic advice. All applications need to be submitted through the Smarty Grants portal, which this link here is also included in all of the material that we have online. And applications importantly close at 1 o'clock on the 28th of September. If you do have any issues with accessing Smarty Grants or any other queries, I'll reference this numerous times throughout today, please email the address that is there and we will be able to support you with any queries that you have. So the assessment criteria is all equally rated. The first is the significance of the opportunity to the innovation precinct or place. So in this, you need to show that the advice you're getting is going to support where you are to grow and develop. It's going to practically inform the future of the strategy, and it's going to contain practical steps that accelerate the development and effectiveness of that place. The kinds of things you'll be asked to provide to support that is a summary outlining why you think this opportunity is significant and how it's going to contribute to long-term economic growth and jobs for Queensland. We're going to be looking at all of those strategies that we talked about. So it's really important that you put your best foot forward with that to show exactly why this is a really great idea. The second assessment criteria is the strength of the collaboration. So this is where we're going to be looking at who are the precinct partners in your innovation place. We want to see that it's supported by partners that do have a shared purpose and a vision, and that the applicant that's going to lead this process has the resources, the knowledge and the skills to successfully deliver on those actions that are in the strategic advice and action plan. We need to ensure that what you're putting forward is really committed by all precinct and place partners so that everyone's going to be on board and really make sure that this succeeds. You'll be asked to provide a short summary about what your precinct in place is, what your shared vision is, and we'll be asking what kind of resources the lead applicant has that gives you the confidence that you're going to be able to deliver on this. We're also going to be asking for letters of support from precinct partners to demonstrate that they're committed to the future strategy and the action plan of that precinct. The third assessment criteria is the value and the viability of the project. So this is where we're looking to see who have you engaged to give you this advice. Are they someone who has relevant expertise and experience in providing informed, effective and practical advice to precincts and places? They don't have to be someone who has experience in innovation, although we have found that there tends to be a specialist capability in that area. And if you're able to find that and use that to your benefit, then that would be helpful for you. We also want to see that the advice is going to be clearly set out with well-planned, achievable actions that have a schedule that give confidence as to when those things will be in place. We're looking for applications that include a co-contribution will be highly regarded, although it's not compulsory. The things that you're going to be needing to provide to help us assess that criteria is the quote from your third-party expert. So we've had some questions around this, and what it means is that before you put your application in, you need to have a proposal from the expert you're intending to use that goes through what the project costs, the scope of activities, and the timeframe to complete the strategic advice is going to be. We would also like to see, and we'll be asked to provide a supplier statement of capability that includes their previous experience within precincts and places. We'll also be asking you as to why you've chosen this person or this firm, what their experience is that has led you to believe that they're best placed to support your precinct. And we would expect to see in that a budget table in the application form that goes through what those costs and expenditure are, when the project is intended to start and finish, the total amount of the project, and how much the applicant is able to put towards that. Those things need to be they're compulsory. You'll be asked to include those, and that will form the basis of what's assessed. The final assessment criteria is the sustainability and resilience, which is around demonstrating that the strategic advice and the action plan will position the innovation place to increase its potential long-term success and its sustainability. We're looking for you to demonstrate how this action plan will be implemented, including who is going to be involved, what skills are going to be required for that next stage of implementation through the partners or who you're expecting to see in that space. You'll be asked to provide a summary that outlines how that strategic plan and advice will contribute to the long-term success and sustainability of the innovation place, and also how your organisation and the precinct partners plan to implement the strategic advice, including the next stage of the implementation. So what we're going to be doing now is starting to go through some of those questions that have come up in the Q&A. So if you just bear with me for one moment.
So there's been one question in here which has come up twice in different ways.
Yep.
In the QIPP strategy, the report states it's identified 320 existing precincts and places of varying size, scale, specialisation, maturity, complexity, and impact in Queensland. They aren't listed. There's people looking to see if there's a way to get that list.
Okay.
If it's available, so that they can see whether or not they fit into those that have been identified.
Okay, so that was part of the strategy that was developed last year. So I don't have that answer at hand. I'm willing to take that on notice though, and we'll provide an update to all of the information that's been asked here will be on our FAQs. So I can't provide that information for you today, but I'll certainly get a response and publish it with the updated FAQs and the recording of this session.
The next one is, any recommendations for those who can set up and implement for newly developing institutions?
So this fund is designed for existing precincts and places. So you need to have those elements that are noted around the innovation precinct or place in place at the time of the application. So if it is a newly developing institution, this fund isn't really intended to support those coming together and the forming of that. We can certainly provide support for you throughout the Advanced Queensland initiatives, and the team is able to provide you with those supports. So if you would like us to make an introduction for you, we can certainly do that to help you look at what opportunities are available to you at that part of the maturity cycle.
Another question, does the precinct have to be identified by one of yourselves, e.g., and I'm assuming that infers it's on the existing 320 places that have been identified, or as determined by the applicant?
It's a great question, and that is absolutely up to the applicant to determine. So the definition that we have is around A brand identity as an innovation precinct or place. It needs to be existing with a physical size, a physical place. Now, as you know, it doesn't need to be all of the one address. You would need to be making that case as to why a collection in a location is defined as a precinct. We know some of our larger precincts, like the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge precinct, is not in a single site that covers an area. So it's really for the applicant to paint the picture on why they are considering themselves to be an innovation precinct or place. And you need to demonstrate that you've got those co-locating of two or more entities, one of which is a commercial and a research entity. And if you can demonstrate that there is an objective in place to foster innovation and collaboration, then that would be in your application. Because as you've noted, that report was prepared some time ago, and we certainly don't believe that's all that there is in Queensland. We know that it's a state that we have new innovation precincts and places coming on board all the time. So great question.
Okay, another question sits around, what about the federally funded or local government funded innovation precincts? Are they eligible?
Yes, they are, if they can demonstrate that they have not just got government partners in there. You need to have other industries, other, you might have a research element. So, of course, the intention is that you've got a precinct that has got more than just a government tenant in there, and that's in our definition. So it's up to the applicant to really put forward their case as to why they believe their innovation precinct or place satisfies the criteria.
Another question coming through, can you have multiple partners made up of smaller businesses or organisations rather than one big one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds like a really diverse and thriving precinct. So you just need to make sure that one of those partners is a commercial and or a research interest.
Where are we? Will this grant program be a requirement to access future AQ grants?
Absolutely not. This is a grant program that is independent, and it's not going to be a requirement that you need to be part of this pool to go on to anything else. It's an independent fund.
Can you have a precinct within a precinct and submit two applications, e.g. the precinct in Brisbane, which is 10,000 square metres, startup space, and the Queensland AI Hub, a separate innovation place within the precinct leading its own application?
That is a really good question. I will take that on notice and provide you with a response to that. The intention is that it's one application per precinct. However, I do take your point. So we would be looking to see where the funding is going to make the biggest impact and the biggest difference. So it would be up to the applicant to determine as to whether they felt they were potentially diluting that by putting in multiple applications for sub-elements of it rather than one that covered all of it. But I'll certainly get a clear and definite answer for you on that.
VC sorry, now everyone's dropping some questions in. VC funded firms that wish to connect with innovation precincts, can we assist? We can provide a list.
I beg your pardon? Sorry, I missed that.
VC funded firms that wish to connect with the innovation precincts, are we able to assist with that?
Okay.
We can just ask. So that was
to take
Ross. So Ross can, we'll just touch base with Ross after this meeting.
I think so, Ross. You've got some great questions there, and any of those questions that you're coming up that if I can't answer you on the spot, I'll be providing you with an individual response, and I'll also answer it in this recording after the webinar.
We're also starting to get a couple of questions that overlap into some future streams. So the first one's sitting around just trying to ascertain whether applying for planning works in stream 1 or do that bit ourselves and then go for stream 3 later in the year. Can you tell us a little bit more about that later program?
So the guidelines for stream 3 will be released closer to October. They will be covering, it's a regional infrastructure program that is for smart upgrades and infrastructure as well. It's intended to really support regions that will not be available, will not have an opportunity to apply for that SEQ City deal. So I can't really give you the detail on that at this point of what's in and what's out. We will be doing a webinar closer to that with all of that information for you. There is nothing that is like if you're asking for something that's funded in here, obviously you wouldn't be able to ask for that to be funded again in stream 3. So it's really up to you what you think is going to make the best impact and the biggest difference for you at this point in time. I would suggest that strategic advice is not likely to be included in stream 3.
Thank you. So then rolling on from that, can you apply for more than one stream, e.g. 1, 2 and or 3? If successful in stream 1, can you apply for the later streams?
Yes, absolutely. Just to be clear, there are 3 streams to this $15 million program, but only 2 of those streams involve contestable funds. This is the first stream, that's a $4 million strategic initiatives program. The second stream that will be released in October is a $10 million. It's called the Regional Infrastructure and Smart Technology Program. Don't quote me on that, I will get it confirmed. But the second stream is to a fund that's been allocated to the department to support the activation of the Place Leaders Network. And that is deliberately broad because it's intended to be a co-designed initiative with people like yourselves who are experts in the industry as to what will really make a difference to activate the people that work within the Place Leaders Network. So those funds, it's not contestable. They'll be allocated to the department to support a range of initiatives that will be developed with co-design of probably a lot of the people that are in this webinar and others that have got interest and specialist advice.
Okay. We're just going back to applicant sort of space. Does a university makerspace or entrepreneurship space count as a precinct?
Does a university, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Does a university makerspace, entrepreneurship space count as a precinct?
So I'll need to refer you back to the definition of the precinct as in this program, because we recognise that terms that describe collectives are not universally defined. So for the purposes of this program, we're really going back to that definition of an innovation precinct of place being something that has a brand and an identity as an innovation space, that it has that existing site and that it co-locates 2 or more entities and has an objective to foster innovation and collaboration.
Yeah. Clusters of precincts would just be one application?
Clusters of precincts will just be one application. I think this is a similar question to what we had before, is if there's a precinct within a precinct, how many applications can you make? And that again is something that I'll give you clarification on and just refer you back to the intent of the program is to support as many lifting the capability of innovation places and precincts across the state. So if you were to have one site and you came up with 5 different sub-elements of that site, I would suggest that's not really fulfilling the remit of the program if you were to get 5 different amounts to do that.
I can't recall if we've already done this one. Can a lead applicant be a local government authority?
Yes, a lead applicant, there is no requirements around who can or can't be a lead applicant other than they need to be a precinct partner. But is, I think as I went through in the evaluation criteria, it needs to be led by an applicant that can demonstrate they've got the skills and resources to see the project through and deliver on the actions.
Thank you. Can you please, oh, sorry, wrong one. Is there a quota for spreading the funding across regions?
No.
Or could it be awarded to one particular geographic area? If there are competing local organisations, will it be harder to gain the grant?
I can tell you that there is no quotas to say that certain amounts are going to different areas. The evaluation panel will be set up by independent people outside of the department. It is going to be chaired by a senior departmental official. However, it will be completely independent and it's based on the merits of the applications that come through.
And then the question around the October $10 million, is that by invitation or by application?
It'll be the same application process as what you have here. So there will be a Smarty Grants independent process. So it's not by invitation, it's not tapping on the shoulder, it's an open contestable project. I could see there's a question above around what is defined as a region in stream 3. I haven't got that definition for you other than
that's my answer.
Oh, that was your answer. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
That's all the questions we currently have.
Okay. Okay, can you explain the links between this program and the SEQ Cities deal? I can see that is a question from Anne. Thank you for that.
That was in where I responded, there's no link, just a reference to what may be defined as region in stream 3.
Ah, yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the SEQ and the other one that I mentioned at the beginning around the SEQ City deal is it's one of the key actions under the Innovation Precincts and Places strategy. So whilst that is being delivered by the Department of State Development, it is an associated initiative under our strategy.
Are there any First Nations precincts that you're aware of or we know of?
That's a really great question. I believe that there are some First Nations precincts that are coming along, which is really exciting, and we would love to see that represented in the applicant pool.
Yeah, maybe we could provide that information post the session.
Yeah, certainly.
We can identify them.
Certainly, if there's any that are identified and known to us in the department, we can certainly make that information available.
Yep. Ross is keen for that information. Does a specialist need to be based in Brisbane, Queensland?
No, they don't. So, third-party experts that are from Queensland would be favourably regarded naturally, but we recognise that there may be circumstances where that's not possible, so it is not a mandatory requirement.
Again, we've ended the questions at the moment.
That is fabulous. So there is a lot to think through in this, and the sorts of questions we're getting that I've seen coming through our mailbox are things like, so can you talk me through the difference between someone who's a co-tenant and someone who's a precinct partner? And I think to me it really speaks to how united are you in your decision on how you're going to be moving forward. Because if you're simply a co-tenant that has commercial interests, that to me is not a precinct partner. A precinct partner is someone who is really invested in the longer term objectives and the ideals of what that precinct is intended to deliver. And you may have evidence of that through, there might be collaborations that have naturally occurred between precinct partners. There might be shared assets, shared spaces and resources. They don't need to be there, but those kinds of things demonstrate that there is some common interests around what it is that you're there to do.
Okay, so I've just been flagged that some people have been putting their questions in the Q&A, which is absolutely the right place to put. Though we've also been getting questions in the chat. So we'll just have a look at those that are sitting in the Q&A at the moment. So one of these is, will selection consider distribution of places across the state to support equity for regions that may not be as advanced?
And I think that relates to the question we had before around quotas. There isn't a quota that is intended for particular regions. I do recognise the intention behind that question is that we have got regions that could really use some extra support, which is where, you know, the second stream that is going to be announced, not announced, that will be released in October is intended purely for regional precincts and places. But in this first stream, it's intended for all of the precincts and places across Queensland are eligible to apply.
Thank you. Another question, do we need to deliver all 3 reports and strategies, or are we just choosing one to deliver?
Another great question, thank you. You can choose how you would like to use those funds. If in your view you have a consultant that is able to deliver all 3, then you're very welcome to put that forward. However, we believe that some of the work that is involved may be may not be possible for some of the precincts. So it's entirely up to the applicant to determine what they can get the most out of that will provide the most value for their precinct in place. You are able to put in for just one, whether it's an investment attraction strategy or a governance or one of those other, which the operational assessments is for things like if you have a precinct that has dormant infrastructure, it might be, you know, old office buildings or old manufacturing areas that you really aren't clear how you could best turn that into something that supports your precinct. Those are the kinds of things I'm talking about. You can just apply for one, or you could apply for all 3. But the 300,000 will be the cap of what is able to be provided.
Thank you. If there are funds remaining after this grant round, will they be made available for other grants? We are a smaller precinct and this grant doesn't seem to be a good fit for us, but we fit the eligibility criteria perfectly.
Okay, that's another good question. If the fund isn't fully subscribed, at the end of this round, we will need to be determining how we utilise those funds. They will absolutely be in the innovation precincts and places. They may be used for another iteration of this round, but that will need to be determined based on the take up of this fund and what the subscription is at the end. I would be interested to know for the person who raised that question if you had. If there was a particular focus you were looking to see in a grant round, and I could help you identify if there is something else in the Advanced Queensland portfolio that might be suitable for where you're at.
Email after.
Yes, certainly email after the session, and we can make sure that that information is provided directly to you.
Cool. Okay, so we also had a couple of people arrive a little late after you'd started.
Yep.
And I think you may have gone past that definition of what is considered a precinct.
Yeah, of course.
Place.
Yep.
Do you mind just going back to that slide and just quickly talking through that again? We've just had just a question around that one as well.
Certainly, just give me a moment.
And while Anita's looking for that, we don't have a list of consultants available for this work. We would encourage you to go find them in the marketplace. We're just not able to provide a list of recommended or preferred.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, we are unable to make specific recommendations as to who you can use. So we would encourage you to talk to your colleagues and to do your own research to identify who is best placed to support you. So yes, and I think there's been a number of I've seen some discussion on LinkedIn with some people flagging who they believe is a good person, but that's not something we can really comment on. So getting back to that question about the definition of what is an innovation precinct or place, apologies for those who've heard this before. It has the following elements: a brand or identity as an innovation precinct or place. It has an existing, clearly defined, established physical site. The site co-locates two or more entities who have a shared vision, agreement, and or common interest, at least one of which is a commercial and or research entity, and it has an objective to foster innovation and collaboration across the precinct or place partners.
Okay, just cross-checking. There's been another question about the list of the 300 odd identified precincts in place. So we did touch on that earlier on. We don't have that immediately available, so we will take that offline and get back to you post this session. Again, it does appear that we have answered all the questions that are either sitting in the chat or in the Q&A section. But if we've missed something, can you just quickly drop it back in so it does raise to the top?
I believe if you raise your hand potentially, that might work.
Have a discussion.
Is there a preferred contact for follow-ups? Yes, certainly. If you could use the innovation places, one word, at dtis.qld.edu.au. That's a mailbox that's checked frequently throughout the day, and you should get a response within a day or two. I know there are a couple of people who have responded that I apologise, I need to get back to you. There's more than 2 days. We've just had a little bit more on than usual at the moment. So that would be my preference.
Maybe draw on multiple consultants who bring in diverse expertise.
Yeah, good suggestions.
So the answer to that question would be yes.
Okay. Level 3. I think I just saw another thing pop up in the chat.
Can the partners be in different locations but same greater area?
That's a good question, Jen. What I would say to that is it's the same as needing to demonstrate that you are part of a clearly identified precinct. So if you were able to say that the precinct has its own identity and it spans a particular area, then I would think that would be something that would be able to be supported in your application. So it would just depend on the geographic distance that you're talking. can the partners, are you asking for valuation of in-kind contributions from various partners that may form of the submission? Now, that's a good question around in-kind contributions. Just give me one moment. I think we had a definition of what was in-kind fixed. So cash contributions. So cash contributions, I'm just reading this from the FAQs. There is a question around, the FAQs are what are considered cash contributions. For the purposes of this fund, they're defined as, in addition to cash, to meet the cost of obtaining it, salaries, including salary-related on-costs for applicant employees directly involved in developing the strategic advice, including the action plan with third-party expert, can be considered as part of the cash in-kind contributions. What standard methodology for valuation?
We don't advocate one.
Yeah, no, I thank you for the question, Anne. That would need to be something that was put forward in your application and would be assessed. There isn't a framework that's been prescribed.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Okay. So we'll just stay online for a few minutes longer to make sure that if there's anyone that's got a burning question they're thinking about, they can bring it forward. But again, please, if you do have further questions, send them through to that email address. We will get through them as quickly as we can. And I will always, respond to those questions directly. And I've had a number of discussions with people. I just need to be really clear, though. I'm not able to tell you and provide advice on specific applications as to whether it's a good idea or not. For obvious reasons, that breaches the process. I can talk about clarifications of the kinds of things that can come through, but I'm not able to review your own personal application and give you an idea as to whether or not it's a good one to put forward. If you're looking to clarify areas of intent and objectives, what's covered in the guidelines, what sorts of materials you need to provide, I can certainly discuss that for you. That's a very good question, Dominic. He has asked, regarding this grant, what does success look like for AQ? Great question. So I would suggest that for this particular grant, what we're looking to do is have, if this grant is really successful, we're going to have an even greater network to supplement what we already have in Queensland of innovation places and precincts that are very clear about what they're doing, are very clear about how they act with each other, that are able to create new opportunities, foster new collaborations with each other, to really build this picture of what we have in Queensland and amplify it, because things are going from strength to strength here. And yeah, this fund is all about supporting people with their strengths, because we know the expertise is not in government, it's out there. And that's very much what this is for, is to really support the amazing work that's being done already in our regions and across the state. Oh yeah, end slide, sorry. Hope seamless. Thank you for your patience with this presentation. This has been a great learning curve for us. I would be interested to know if there are other elements that you would like to see included in webinars in future, or if there was if you had any feedback on what was included in here. That would be really interesting to us, because we would like to make sure that we're pitching things at the right level and it's really supporting the information that you need. So please, if you do have any suggestions of areas of clarification that would be helpful to you, we will be. Is connectivity the focus in a Michael Porter way? Oh, I'm sorry, Ross, I don't really understand the question.
It's
all right. It's the theory.
Oh yeah, possibly, yes. Yes, okay. It is. The answer would be yes. That's the intent.
Yeah, okay. Yes, so the answer is yes to your question, Ross. But I must admit, I am not an expert in cluster theory or the Michael Porter way, so I'd be happy to do some research on that and provide you with an answer. Yeah, great. But again, if you do have any suggestions on how we can do this better, this fund is intended to support all of you. And if there are areas that we can provide greater clarification on, be really happy to help you with that. And send us an email and we can absolutely help you as well.
So if there's any last minute questions, please feel free to drop them up. Otherwise, for those that are attending, thank you for your time. We'd also like to just remind you that we will be posting this video onto the website and sharing it with you if you attended the session so that you can rewatch it. And an updated frequently asked questions will also be provided onto the website to reflect some of the new questions that we got during this session with you.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.